So here we are. Welcome. I'm Steve Hickman. I'm the executive director of the Center for Mindful Self-Compassion. I'm so glad that you could join us here for this reflection and opportunity to practice with Dr. Kristin Neff, one of our co-founders of the Center for Mindful Self-Compassion and the Mindful Self-Compassion course. I'll say a little bit at the end, but just to say that this is our Re-Resolution Day 2022. We've figured here we are 5 months into 2022, and that New Year's resolution, that commitment to what was important to you might have, if it has, as it has for me, faded a bit in the rearview mirror as the year has gone on, a chance to recommit, to reconnect to what's really important to each of us. And we hope that part of what's important to you is what's also important to us at the Center for Mindful Self-Compassion, which is a more compassionate and self-compassionate world, which is our vision and our mission for sure. So in the spirit of that, we wanted to take this time to allow everyone to have an opportunity to reflect on really what's important to you and what you might do to reconnect, to commit, to move your life and your intentions in valued directions. And gratefully, we have Dr. Kristin Neff, as I said, here as a guest to guide us through this practice, and I invite you to participate and see where it all might lead. So welcome, Kristin.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, I'm so cool you're doing a Re-Resolution Day. It's so true that we forget what's important to us. We just get caught up in the busyness of our lives, and we lose touch with our values. And as you know, the core of self-compassion is really asking ourselves, what do I need? And part of what we need is to act in a way that's consistent with our values, because that brings us ultimate satisfaction and happiness. And also, the last couple of years, I've really been playing with this idea of fierce self-compassion. So whereas tender self-compassion is more about accepting ourselves, emotional acceptance, which of course is key, but it's also about taking action. So taking action for ourselves, making sure that we're safe, we're meeting our needs, we're doing the changes we want, but also taking external action. In other words, compassion is about connecting the inside with the outside. So it's just so important, I think, to get in touch with what we value and really making a commitment to trying to make the changes in our own lives or in the outside world that are really meaningful to us. So I'm going to lead just a little practice. So if you're listening to this or watching this, please take out something to write with. Okay. So I'd invite you just to think about, it's a big question, but think about what are the values in your life that are just really meaningful to you personally, right? Maybe it's the environment, maybe it's social justice work, race, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, ability, right? Making sure that the world's an inclusive place for all. Maybe it's health. You're really invested in making sure everyone has access to healthcare. Maybe you're an animal lover and you really care about the fair treatment of animals, right? So just really pause. What are the values that really are important to you, that really bring meaning to your life? And just jot down some of these core values. Okay, so hopefully at least you've been able to identify some values that are personally meaningful. And now I'd like you to ask yourself, do you feel that you are doing what you would like to manifest these values in the world? In other words, are you taking the action that you would like to? Are you spending the time that you would like to, the effort, the resources? Does it feel like you're in balance in terms of what you're committing to with your values, or do things feel a little bit out of balance? Like maybe you aren't spending the time you would like to, or things are just keep taking you away. So kind of just check in. Where are you in your life right now? Do you feel like you're in line with your values, or that you would like to commit a little bit more? Or maybe manifest a little bit more what's important to you? And if you find, like I do when I do reflections like this, that maybe things are a little bit out of balance, a little bit out of alignment, first of all, I'd like you to give yourself some compassion for that, right? It's only human. We aren't all able to always live in accord with our values to get everything accomplished that we would like. But remembering that the reason we're doing this is not because we're inadequate if we don't. It's not like we need to judge ourselves if we aren't living in accord with our values, but just because we care, about ourselves, because we care about others. And so from this perspective of self-compassion, again, not judgment, not blame, not expectations, but of care, I'd like you to consider, what might you do a little bit differently? What might you be able to commit to in terms of taking action, or maybe resources or time, that would help you be more in line with your values, or help you manifest them in the world? Maybe becoming more politically active, or volunteering, or making some lifestyle change. Just write down any ideas that come to you, ways you might make a commitment to fierce compassion, to do something different. Right, and as you're doing this, probably the thoughts will come up, but it's going to be hard. But there's this block. I'm not capable, or it just never seems to happen. So again, see if you can have this thread of self-compassion keep running through. All we need to do is do our best, and using encouragement, kindness, warmth to help us get to where we want to be, not like to prod us with the cattle prod. Right. So what words of encouragement, support, understanding might you use with yourself to help you realize your dreams? Because these are really important to you, these values. So just jotting this down. Okay, and then finally, this is kind of the golden nugget here. Looking over what you've written, what's important to you, and understanding how compassion might encourage you, help you. I'd like you to write a vow. Now, this vow is not a marriage vow. It's not like some binding contract, but a vow is a crystallization of intention. When we write a vow, I vow to try to do something. It's like you're taking all your your core intentions and crystallizing them in a phrase that you can repeat. So for instance, I have a vow that I use for myself, something that's important to me. And every morning when I wake up, I light a candle and I say that vow as a way of kind of reconnecting with my core intention. So this is a vow that you can write, and maybe you've written one in the past. This is the time for you to renew this. A vow to help you move in the direction of your values. So it may be something like, I vow to try to bring more compassion in the world, or I vow to spend the time needed to care for my neighbors, or I vow to be more environmentally conscious, or whatever your value is, write it in the form of a vow. Again, remember, it's not a binding contract, it's an intention, it's a wish for yourself and the world. So you might even want to just close your eyes for a moment and just see if you can let it bubble up. I vow to what's true for you. Okay, and so hopefully you've written something down. If you haven't, that's also okay. This is really a process as opposed to a final destination. But just to remember, it's such an important part of compassion, both for ourselves as well as others. Taking the time to investigate, what do we care about, what's important to us, and then taking the fiercely self-compassionate action of committing to it and doing what we can to bring it into the world. Steve, do you want to add anything? I know I know this is one of the areas you're so passionate about, how self-compassion can be used to commit to taking action and getting in contact with our values.
Yeah, I was just thinking, especially with the news that we have around us right now and the events unfolding, it's easy to get lost, to lose track of those values, and also maybe sometimes to feel a little or a lot powerless or unable to play a role. I'm wondering if you have just a few thoughts for people who are struggling over values that they have that are being, challenged right now by the things in the news.
Yeah, well, so I live in Texas, right? So the shooting happened actually not that far from me, and all my friends, well, the whole world's devastated. But yeah, so that's a really good example when your values are being so contradicted by events of the world. And so this thing about feeling powerless, I mean, I think in some ways we have to be humble. We aren't in control. Right? We can't control things like that. We can't snap our fingers and make the world the way we want it to be. But what we can do, at least for me personally, is just commit that much more to in the small sphere that I can influence, to try to bring more compassion, to try to bring more mental health, for instance, because obviously something like that happens because of mental health. Well, there's so many reasons something like that happens, but to do what we can in our small sphere, it should, just to kind of invigorate our commitment to doing what we can. And no, we can't change the world. We can't change the world, but we can. We aren't powerless, because the more we change our internal mindset, every single person we come into contact with will be affected by that internal change, in addition to any concrete steps we take. So, but compassion is really so key, so key.
And I've also found that remembering that these things that upset us or that outrage us or motivate us in some way that cause us to hurt in some way are the reason those things hurt is because we have these values that you've been focusing on, that, you know, we value safety, security, justice, fairness, etc.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. Justice, fairness, equity, yeah, safety, children, you know, life.
And compassion.
And compassion, right? Well, it really all comes down to compassion. Compassion, I think, is, you know, defining compassion is concern with the alleviation of suffering. It really all boils down to compassion. And remember, the fierce as well as the tender. So there's the holding it in our hearts, the grief of it, the pain. But the fierce part is the commitment to taking action to do what we can to alleviate that suffering. It's not just feelings based, it's also actions based. That's why committing to our values is so important, to be complete in compassion. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think this really dovetails, of course, with what we are trying to do at the Center for Mindful Self-Compassion that you and our dear friend Chris Germer co-founded, is really to bring this into the world, you know, in every way possible. And I think what you've highlighted today shows how this is relevant beyond just, you know, how it's a practice that might help us contend with our own difficult feelings, that actually makes a difference in the larger world. And CMSC endeavors to do that in a whole variety of ways.
You described some of them. I think people may not even realize what we do.
So obviously, or maybe not, we have the Mindful Self-Compassion program that you and Chris created that we offer for adults, but we have a beautiful teen program, and there's a group of people who definitely can use this practice today, as in any time, but particularly today. So we have a Mindful Self-Compassion for Teens program. We have a huge effort going on for healthcare providers, the Self-Compassion for Healthcare Communities program that you were intimately involved with creating as well. And educators, we partnered with our friends at Mindful Schools to offer a Self-Compassion for Educators program. So we're talking about educators, healthcare professionals, teens. Those are top on the list of people in these days in particular who could use this practice. We're doing all that we can to reach these folks, as well as reaching out around the world. We've got teachers all over the globe teaching in 30 plus languages in probably 40 or 50 countries. And we really do want to play a role as the center in making a difference in a lot of ways, including addressing a lot of the inequities and unfairness in the world. And we have a really extensive effort around diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, including increasing the ranks of diverse teachers amongst our family of teachers, access to our programs. Our online programs have been great because they've been able to increase access and accessibility for so many people, but there's so much more to do. And that's why I would love it if perhaps people's commitment and Re-Resolution includes a resolution to helping make a more compassionate world, not just through your own practice, but through perhaps supporting the Center for Mindful Self-Compassion so that we can do more of this kind of work. It's all important work. We're honored and pleased to be able to be doing it and could use people's support. You can simply go to our website, which you'll find in a link in the comments on Facebook, but centerformsc.org. We land on our homepage, you'll see our Re-Resolution Day banner, and you can click and donate, and we would love to have your contribution so that we can do even more.
And just so people know, it's not like it just goes into an administrative abyss. I mean, we use it for concrete things like giving scholarships to people who might not otherwise be able to afford our programs, to learn the skill of self-compassion so they can take that into their life. And it makes such a big difference in our ability to live happy, fulfilled lives.
I've had a great pleasure this morning of reading several comments from people who've received scholarships from us over the past several years. And it's just so touching to see how much transformation, how much gratitude there is, but even more so, like I said, transformation and change in people's regaining hope and focus and attention on what's important to them, just as we're talking about today. So I hope that you'll help us out and continue to check out the programs that we have and see what's going on. I know Kristin is about to be teaching an introduction to self-compassion course through the center that you may be of interest to folks, as well as a course a little bit later on fierce self-compassion. So thank you all to everyone who attended and everyone who's had a chance to see this. And thank you, Kristin, for taking the time. And we'll see you all next time.
All right. Thanks, Steve. And thanks everyone who tuned into this. Appreciate it.
Done. There we go. Stop.